up, everybody? Today I'm going to be showing you how to make Mac Declos, Daniel hlein style, techno, trance, whatever you want to call it. To get this full project file, samples, MIDI, and the presets from this video, you can go to the link at the top of the description. Definitely go grab that from my website so you can follow along and make your best track today. This is a really great template. You know, if you really just take this, you can build it into a whole track and make something for yourself and get going with your career right away. Links at the top of the description. Thanks for the support. Every little bit helps, and let's get started. So, we're at 150 BPM. First thing we got right off the bat is just a fat 909 kick. Now, there's a little bit of magic to it to get it to really hit. So this is the dry kick. I've got this overdrive on here, which you can hear immediately adds a lot more punch in the mid-range. And just grit to the kick, and then it's only at 20%, so you still get plenty of the low end and like the kick coming through. It's just got a little bit of a push and a little bit more punch. We're also cutting out a bit of sub, and then we're converting it to mono, because you pretty much want your kick and bass to be mono. It's not really going to sound that good. There's a bunch of stereo stuff happening. Then we've got our bass line. So it's just one note, right? Just nice side bass. Bounces off the kick perfectly. The one thing you'll notice though is the notes aren't touching each other. Very important. Don't just make these like that. If you make them, you know, a little bit more staccato like this, you can hear it's a lot, you know, punchier, and it's gonna groove better too. That's what makes it really hit with the kick. So then for the actual sound, it's made with operator, and it's just one saw wave. The reason why I like using operator though is essentially for these kinds of basses, it's going to work best if you can reset the phase on every note. What I mean by this is down here, this R, where it says phase, if I turn off the effects, check out what happens if I turn that off. Here it's like kind of a different sound every time, and then if you turn that on, it's the same bass note every time. It's as if it's just audio. And that's perfect because you really want that uniform, you know, solid, powerful bass where it's just the same thing every time. If you let it be, you know, have that phase going and it's just constantly moving around, it's not going to be as fat and as hypnotic and groovy. So that's very important for these trancey side basses. We've also got a low pass with a nice punchy envelope on it. We've got a bit of sidechain. Cutting out some sub, and then converting to mono, because like I said, you want your bass and kick to be mono. Then we got these drums on top of it. Nice fat 909 hi-hat, and then this clap. I want to say this is like a hlein drum clap, but it's just super punchy, right? With that kick and bass, you can hear just these four elements alone are a great group. And that's really what you want. Like, this has to be working before anything else can happen. Then we've got some live loops. Right, kind of like some live percussion you couldn't really get. Otherwise, you can see these are both being sidechained to the kick. Then I got this drum rack with a bunch of percussion in it. So you have like this groove going. And then you add this in. It's that last piece of energy on top of it, right? So what this is doing is, yeah, it's just a bunch of different hi-hats in a drum rack, creating this percussion, and then there's also just a high-pass filter on that. You see, this sample has some delay in it already, so it kind of like creates more groove. And yeah, so really you want to start the track with all these elements. Just get this stuff really good, and then all this next stuff I'm about to show you can fit on top of that. So then we got these stabs. Right, so these are kind of like these sounds that you have, you know, your drums and your bass are just steady going. Then you have these things popping in and out, and then that's going to create a groove because you have contrast. You have one thing that's steady and one thing that kind of appears and then disappears, and that's what's going to create the excitement in a track like this. So the first little stab we've got here is just this operator. It's basically this FM sound created with the square 6 and then a little bit of FM from a sine wave. That's an octave up, right, with a short envelope. But then the secret here is we got the low pass. So it's just cutting a little bit of that high off, and it kind of turns it into a whole different stab. Then we got this one. So this is analog. It's 2 saw waves detuned a lot with a low pass that's got a nice punchy envelope on it. A bit of reverb and distortion after the reverb. So it just kind of becomes this nice wash of like crunch. And then we have a high pass filter on that. And then the last stab is just this little castanet. Right, because it just fits in there and it contrasts with the synth stabs. And then the other thing on here is on this group, we just have a bit of delay. And what that does by putting the same delay on all 3 of these is it kind of solidifies them as a group. Like when you hear it, you just hear sort of like one thing, like the stabs, because they're all going through that same delay. So they're going to feel very similar. Then we've got this. So it's just a little bit of noise that's popping in and out. There's also this one. So again, more stabs, because like this stuff on its own is good, but it's going to get boring. You want to have, you know, like all these little things that are talking to each other over top of that. So with these, it's just noise and operator, like this one. It's literally just a white noise with a high pass filter, and then the attack is set so that it kind of fades in, and you get that. We've also got with this one. So what this is, it's a little bit more complicated. This is just some white noise, and then we have a low pass filter with a high resonance into this shaper. So when you distort like a highly resonant filter, you get that kind of a tone. And yeah, it's a cool way to take noise and kind of make it something fresh. Play around with these shapers inside of Operator because you can really create a lot of sounds that way. Then we've got this little vocal sample. Yeah, just a little piece of the end of something. Again, more kind of like stabby sounds over that main groove. This is just going through a bit of echo and distortion. And then we got this one. So this is this really cool stab going into a bit of half note delay. And yeah, this really speaks to like, you know, you don't always need to have this magical processing that you do and stuff. A lot of times it's just finding something that's really cool like this and does its own thing and then put that into the track with what it's already doing. You don't need to be a wizard always. A lot of times you can kind of find the magic and bring it into your track. And yeah, so that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, grab this template at the top of the description. Don't miss out. It's just $5 and you're going to get a really awesome value. I promise you, you can make a great track in this style if you grab this template right now. I've done a lot of the work for you. Go ahead and grab it. Help yourself out. Thanks for the support, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.